Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to the second last episode of The Path to a New Edition. Now this series has been covering the D&D Next playtest packages, which came out over the years of 2012 and 2013. You see, Wizards of the Coast had brought out 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which had introduced a lot of video game type concepts into tabletop role-playing, where you'd be powering up your character in various ways, and that turned out not to be terribly popular. So they were looking for feedback from the community because they really wanted to make 5th edition what players wanted. And obviously that was fantastically successful because 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons has been absolutely massive. It's been the biggest version out. Now this video will cover the last of the playtest packages, which came out on the 19th of September 2013. Now it's going to be very, very close to 5th edition. They're going to finally started stripping out all of the oddities, the things which they brought in, which players didn't really like. And by now, they should just be tweaking the final elements. But we'll have a look as we go through that. And next week I'll be back with what's been revealed so far about 6th edition, what I think we can learn from the 5th edition playtest packages about the directions Wizards might go in with 6th edition, and my personal thoughts on how we're going to go forward in Dungeons & Dragons. But let's go over to the desktop and have a look at the final playtest package. So as usual on opening the playtest package, we've got the update file first. Now this documents all the changes, which are absolutely massive this time, because there's 5 pages of them. But basically these are all updates to 5th edition. So I don't see much point in going through each of them. Quickly referencing through, we've got the usual section on using this material. It mentions that new races have been added: the Dragonborn, Drow, Kender, Tieflings and Warforged. There's been some updates to skills, and things like Free Spirit has been renamed to Fey Ancestry. Rockgnome Artificer's Law is no longer references Recall Law. Half-Orc's Menacing has been revised to use skills. All classes have been updated to use the new proficiency bonus rule, which is included in each class table. The Bard makes its first appearance. There's been various updates with Barbarian, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Mage, Monk, Paladins, Rangers, Rogues. Absolutely tons of changes in each. The Ranger is perhaps the most changed one. Backgrounds and skills. Well, we're back to skills. The lore talents from last time, the last package, where they ripped skills out and replaced them with various types of lore, wilderness lore, underground lore, etc, etc. They're all gone and we're back to having skills. Bestiary has been updated to use new skill rules, character creation's been updated, DM guidelines, equipment document, feats, the how to play, magic items have been revised to use skills, pre-generated characters at first level have been updated for this package. And spells have been revisions since the last package, including Fireball, Mass Invisibility, and Seeming. And that's the update file. We're on to the how to play. Well, there are 29 pages of rules here, but basically it's 5th edition. We're getting very, very close here. I'm only going to stop when we see something radically different. So we've got the DM's guidelines, lots and lots of pages of those, 20 pages of DM guidelines, including the random equipment tables and treasure tables at the end. The creating a character sections, well, very familiar to you from 5th edition. We've got the determine ability scores, choose a race, choose a class, choose a background, assign your ability scores, choose equipment, fill in your numbers, describe your character, and then play. And then beyond 1st level, we've got the experience tables. Multiclassing has been introduced. Now, this came as a surprise to me because in my head, multiclassing still worked the same way as it did in 3rd edition. But something I was shocked to discover, because this is in the 5th edition rules, that there's guidelines to how many spells you get. You see, I'd been assuming, like on 3rd edition, that if you were a 5th level paladin, you would get 5th level paladin skills, and then you multiclass to become a 3rd level wizard, you would get 3rd level wizard spells, and the two would remain separate. But apparently you get multi-class spells per day, and you can choose from either of the classes. You get a certain amount of slots. It's not so many divine slots, so many wizardly slots. So I was surprised to check the player's handbook I've got to the side of me and discover that, yep, that's in 5th edition, that's how it worked. Been playing 5th edition since it came out and didn't know that rule. But I've never really played a multi-class spell caster or 2 spellcasting classes. I played a fighter who became a ranger, so gained access to spellcasting, but never anything which was 2 spellcasting types. We've got the races, so dwarves look very familiar, elves, very familiar, halflings. We've got the humans detailed very nicely now. We've got the dragonborn, or rather, it goes on to unusual races. So we've got the dragonborn, the drow, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, which still don't have much detail in them, and they still don't have the 5th edition damage rules where they can shrug off an attack which takes them to 0 and decide that it takes them to 1 hit point instead. So there was no playtesting which went into that at all, if it was introduced after the final playtest package, which I find interesting. We've got Kender, Tiefling and Warforged. They are all very briefly gone over. There's not a lot in there at all. We've got the classes. So the Barbarians are now looking very familiar. I do note that the Totem Warriors, the Bear Totem Warriors, still don't get their ability to take half damage from all types of damage except Psychic. I think that's the one they take full damage from. That's not in there, so that was never playtested either, which I find very notable, because to me that's one of the flaws of the system, that Bear Totem Barbarians are seriously unbalanced. So if that wasn't playtested at all. We've got Bards. Well, the Bards are pretty much fleshed out. I do notice some slight things. It makes comments that you can manipulate others through from oration, but you must speak or play an instrument as an action. It leaves in that you have to perform music in certain places, although they are starting to swap over to that you can use oration as a bardic skill, so you can inspire others with speech. Because that's one of the characters I play. I play a halfling bard who is a politician or an ambassador. So he uses inspiring speeches rather than playing music for people. That's his special ability. Now, the rules basically work the same. It just needs slight rewording in places, which obviously they did. Got clerics, looking very familiar. Druids. Now, the druids are slightly different because they're wild shape. Instead of using creatures out of the player's handbook, they actually have set creatures here. So beast shapes: hound, steed, fish, rodent, and bird. So you can't become the overpowered bear. It also doesn't detail carefully what happens when you reach 0 hit points in your animal form. In 5th edition, when you reach 0 hit points in animal form, you are restored to full hit points in your normal form. So basically you get to double up your hit points as a druid. Whereas in this, it just says that you revert to your normal form at 0 hit points. It doesn't clarify what state you are at. And in fact, I would say the way it's worded would hint that you've been reduced to 0 hit points, so you're dropping to the ground and reverting to your normal form. So you are down. Interesting to see that that wasn't playtested either, which is the other big flaw in 5th edition, which gets abused by druids constantly going around in bear form. It all seems to be down to the bears. Bear totem barbarians and bear form druids. Anyway, there's the spells. They look fairly familiar. We've got battle shapes at 6th level, which does have the bear. If you drop to 0 hit points but don't die, you remain unconscious until the end of your next turn. You fall unconscious, then still have 0 hit points. So actually in the bear form it does detail that you are at 0 hit points and you drop. So the rules in 5th edition are different and were never playtested. And you've got your behemoth shape. At 16th level you can shape into a behemoth. We've got the fighters, mages, monks, with the key points looking very familiar to 5th edition. Some very slight changes. We've got paladins. We've got the rangers. There are a lot of changes from the last package, but we are looking very much like 5th edition now. We've knocked these into shape. And then we've got rogues. In the next file we've got background and skills. As far as I can see, these are identical to 5th edition. There's perhaps some extra ones in the rulebook which aren't in this package, but all the others are pretty much word for word as the 5th edition rulebook. Feats, again, they are almost identical to 5th edition. Equipment list, I haven't gone through this in detail, but the bits I've glanced at look to be very, very familiar. Magical items. The spells, again, some minor tweaks here and there, but not much. Bestiary, looking very familiar to the monster manual. And then we've got the character sheet, which hasn't been updated to include skills. We've still got the lore skills here from the last playtest package, which have now been abandoned. Which is sad, because I do love this character sheet. It is beautiful. The adventures they provided were exactly the same. They hadn't been updated, as were all the other files. But that is the final playtest package. And by this point we are getting very, very close. The things I'm noticing which are different to 5th edition are things which I don't like in 5th edition and haven't been playtested. So, make a lot of sense that they cause problems. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very, very much for watching. And, as always, you guys look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.